Good morning, everyone. And here's a wonderful article on trekmovie.com. It's an interview with Wil Wheaton, and he talks about his new film and Star Trek, of course. So let's just see what he has to say. So here he's talking about the ready room and returning to this or that. Do you ever worry about what people sometimes call franchise fatigue? I don't care about franchise fatigue. I mean, you either like it or you don't. Yeah, that's kind of the problem with franchise fatigue. You keep getting the same crap and you end up not liking it. Either you come and participate in the storytelling or you don't. Exactly. You either like the story and want to keep listening to it or you don't. And it's a giant world with lots of people in it. It's a giant world with lots of characters. That's true in a story. And if you don't like it, God bless you. Oh, go do something else. That's fine. That's just the way it is. That's great. You know what that sounds like? I mean, from Wil Wheaton, coming from his voice, it sounds like this.
And if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Problem solved.
That's pretty much how it comes across. Anyway, you're never going to be all things to all people. I agree. If you're going to be writing a story, you have to be very specific who your audience is. If you try, you end up being beige, which is boring and uninteresting, which is kind of curious because when we think of Star Trek nowadays, we think of Discovery, Picard, now Lower Decks. What do you think Star Trek has become? It's become so diluted, so transformed into something else that it has become a new color. Whether it's beige or this or that, I don't know. Discovery is certainly not for the old fans of Star Trek. Picard is, I don't know who that's for. People who like violence and crazy old stories with men, I don't know. And Lower Decks is just some other genre. So you become something else. It sounds as if Kurtzman is just taking things which are popular and transforming Star Trek into those things. I don't know what Picard is, what demographic that is, and what he's transforming things into for Picard. I wish I knew. It's just so bizarre. I think Star Trek is as exciting now as it maybe has ever been. Really. Since when? DS9? Since Voyager? Since Enterprise? That was actual Star Trek. Whether it was good production to you or not is debatable. But that was Star Trek. We had some movies which were really weird. We had some action movies which were also very weird. And now we have series back on TV or streaming. It's not the same. It's definitely not Star Trek. There's just so much wonderful storytelling happening. Really, name me one story that's wonderful in New Trek. Mr. Wil Wheaton, tell me. Give me the arc. Give me the characters. Give me the show. I want to know. As I've seen, not all of it, seen some, which I could stomach. The rest was crap. And there are such great casts bringing such great stories to life right now. Okay, I'm sure the actors are very good at their job. It is a wonderful moment to be a Star Trek fan. Really, I have the exact opposite feeling. I can't find anything I like, and I wish I could. I can't find anything entertaining or teaching me a lesson. It's just all jokes and violence and drama, which is not helping the Star Trek brand. We want hard science fiction. We want science fiction that has conflict with our characters and they grow as a result. That's interesting to listen to, whether it's episodic storytelling in the classic Trek sense or an ongoing, overarching plot line. As a fan of all the new and upcoming shows, which one has you most interested? I absolutely love Lower Decks. Oh dear. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Since what? Rick and Morty? Because that's all it is. It is Rick and Morty. They actually hired guys from Rick and Morty. It sounds and reads like Rick and Morty. And I love the acknowledgement that there are not only other crewmen and women on the starship, there are not our bridge crew, there are also other starships that are not the flagship. I agree. That's great. I think there's all kinds of stories in the Star Trek lore you can get away with and introduce and be just as interesting, if not more so, in the novels when you're not focusing on the actual characters from the show. I think that's a fantastic idea. Fortunately, it's not that good. It's breaking lore. You're doing weird things with it. It's not Star Trek. It's comedy. So it ends up on the B team, and what does that look like? And what does that sound like? I mean, we could have done this in normal TNG, and it was done a lot when Riker, the B team, goes down to do a mission, and Picard stays up on the bridge. And Riker could bring all these red shirts with him, or unknown actors, and they could have their moment to shine. There was even an episode called Lower Decks in TNG, which was very interesting. So these ideas are fine. It's the execution that matters, and Lower Decks is combining genres that doesn't quite fit well, at least the way it was presented. So we interviewed the showrunner, the director, it's Kurtzman, some of the actors. We've all talked about if you inverted the A and B stories in TNG, then Lower Decks is what you get. No, it's not. We've had episodes of TNG where we just focus on secondary or tertiary characters. There was even, as I said, there was even an episode called Lower Decks where someone dies. Those stories work out just fine. Putting on a whole genre on top of that called comedy doesn't quite work as well. Gee, I wonder why. It might have something to do with the writing. In the entirety of Star Trek, the thing that I'm crazy about at the moment, I mean, Star Trek Picard is my favorite thing since TNG. Nothing comes close. This guy loves Picard. Out of Discovery, out of as much as he loves Lower Decks, Picard is his number one since TNG. That's amazing. But I am actually watching DS9 for the first time. Like, what? This is a dude who's an established geek. He's pretty much a really hardcore into everything geeky, whether it's D&D or sci-fi or whatever. And he's watching DS9 in 2020. It took him over, 20 years or more to watch this show? Why? Because he was a hardcore TNG guy, because, okay, fine. And I just never watched it. That was like, what a strange thing. It's one thing to be, really into your show. It's another thing to justify it by saying why TNG is better. And at first, I think TNG was more entertaining and attractive. And I'm really sad I didn't experience it at the time because I've been absolutely loving it. This is the great thing about great shows. Even people who don't understand good or bad media can appreciate great shows. And his love of Lower Decks or any other new Trek is like, I love this because of Star Trek. And you have DS9. Oh, I really like DS9. He can't articulate why, though. Because if he could, he would start to chip away at this idea that Lower Decks is great Trek, or Discovery is great Trek, or Picard is great Trek. Because then you'd have standards. You'd say, this is great, and you say, well, this is good, and this is okay, and this is just mediocre. You see, you begin to grade these things. And the more you grade things, the more you enumerate your values, the more you understand what is good and bad. And he hasn't even thought that far ahead. Either he doesn't want to or he just can't. I love the stories they tell. I love these characters. It is a freaking great show. I'm just crazy about it, and I'm really, really grateful to be discovering it and experiencing it for the first time right now, and I'm not lugging around this emotional image or baggage of youth. Fine. He's learning to like good things. It's like we have a child. It's like, this is good stuff. This is what you should be doing. This is bad stuff that you should not be doing. And he just happened to stumble into DS9, which is arguably the best Star Trek show of them all. I mentioned talking to Mike McCann, the showrunner. I don't know if you saw a couple weeks ago on the Metaverse panel, he said he'd love to bring Wesley into the show. Okay, I would do this show in a heartbeat. I'm a massive fan. Who says no to Star Trek? People who actually watch or have tried watching new Trek, they go, no, not for me. Now, if you're trying to argue for a job, that's another story. I'm sure lots of people would love to get a job in show business or TV or whatever, voice acting. Good for you. Go for it. Whatever your qualms about it, a job's a job. There's no judgment from me. You can do whatever you want to do in your career. The question is it going to be worth it? I don't know. In my headcanon, Wesley Crusher is a Time Lord. Okay. If you actually pay attention to TNG and the last episode of Wesley Crusher, I believe it was an episode called Journey's End, where he runs off with the Traveler and he resigned Starfleet, etc., because he didn't like what they were doing to these Native Americans or whatever on this planet. The problem was, I think he was actually in the Nemesis movie, where he's back in Starfleet and he's serving on Riker's ship, the Titan. And you're like, oh, I guess he just stopped being a Time Lord. But there were lots of cutout scenes. I don't even recall Wesley in the show. Maybe he was in the background. But there's added features in the DVD or the Blu-ray that he has a small little scene with Picard and his mom. So, yeah, it's what they did with Wesley was not the greatest, at least in the movie. Would you? If they were interested in me for Lower Decks, I would do absolutely everything I could to get to yes. If I got to work with Patrick again, if I had the privilege of performing in a scene with him again, it would be such a gift and a blessing. Yada yada. So it's Wil Wheaton trying to, I don't know. I wouldn't say he's trying to show off his love for Star Trek. Obviously, he's a fan of the show. But it's just that general feeling of being a fan of everything Star Trek is not the way to go. You have to understand quality. You have to understand good storytelling, what works, and why. And he's just not there. It's just not a person whose opinion you should be listening to in regard to criticism of Star Trek, sadly. And anyone who watches the shows, who is a fan of science fiction, who understands the genre, or at least has watched TNG in the original series, go, Lower Decks is stretching. It's reaching. It's trying very hard to be something it's not, or trying to be something else. It doesn't work. Discovery is its own thing. I don't even know what it's been doing. It's in its third season, apparently. In Picard, I don't even want to remember how traumatizing that was. But hey, Wil Wheaton, folks. God bless him, and God bless whatever the heck happens to the Star Trek franchise. Thanks for listening. Have yourself a great day.